excited about this. It's kind of like my baby, actually. Well, our baby, but you know what I mean. My name is Kendall Walker, and I'm the program director for I2 Arts Collective. So we got the idea, we wanted to do a Langston Hughes Playwright Festival. So this weekend we're featuring independent playwrights, and they will be showcasing your shows, having readings, this, that, and the other. So I'm so thankful for Vienna Carroll to bless this space by opening up our very first showcase with Shallow Brown. So I invite you to come back, but definitely enjoy tonight's production of Shallow Brown as we kick off the weekend. Okay, thank you so much, and I introduce you Shallow Brown.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, good people. How you doing? Good evening. I want to welcome you to the Baltimore Association of Moral and Educational Improvement of Colored People. My name is Nathaniel Redding. I'm the president, and we're honored here to share with you some stories from our esteemed speaker. But before we do that, we're honored to host this free Colored Ladies anniversary. But just a few announcements and a couple of things around our association. When we started back in 1827, just a few of us came together to look at how we can take care of our own. That's how the association started. And we started out by helping the colored troops, and then let's give it up for the colored troops. We have several things going on here. After the emancipation, we changed our mission, we changed our title. We used to be the association. We changed our title. I've just changed my page. Well, a few announcements. We have a few things going on. You see up here, we have our weekly sewing class every Wednesday in the Keckley Sewing Room. And I'm excited to have my good friend Elizabeth Keckley herself in the audience today. Now, Miss Keckley, as some of you may know, is the exclusive dressmaker for President Lincoln's First Lady. And we have her today, and she's also an accomplished author with a best-selling book, Behind the Scenes, or 30 Years a Slave, 4 Years in the White House. Let's give her a hand for her. Yes, our Frank account really makes for some good reading. So if you have any issues reading, come down to our reading room. We have the U.S. Colored Troops reading room every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 7:30. Whatever your reading level, you're welcome to come down and get started. Now, for this evening's festivities. Friends, I know some of you like to sing. Raise your hand if you like to sing. Wow, we have a few people. Well, in our culture, everyone sings. It's like speaking. All right, you have a voice, you speak. It doesn't matter if you're trained, on tune, off tune, it doesn't matter. Because our esteemed speaker would like us to join in on some of these sea shanties. Anybody know what a sea shanty is? No.
It's a song that people sing at sea or about the sea.
That's right. So the sea workers, sailors, people that work on the sea, it's a work song. You familiar with work songs? All right, so on the sea, they're a work song. We call them sea shanties. We use them for work, for spirit, for codes, or just for fun. When you want to clean your house, you put music on, right? It helps the work go a little easier. So we want to think about these sea shanties as the rhythm of the ocean. All right? Think about the ocean. So the first one we'll go over, because she really needs you guys to participate. So what we'll be doing is a call and response. We're familiar with call and response? All right, I'll make the call, and you read the response. Okay, so the first song in your programs, you should have the sea shanties there. That's what this is today. So take a look in your programs. You see the sea shanties right there, and they're very, very easy. Does everyone have a program? No. We want to make sure we honor our speaker today, the sea shanties. Well, they'll be on the board. as we go along, but they're very, very easy. The first one is shallow brown. Everyone say that. Shallow brown. All right, that is your response. All right. Now, I'm no singer, but I'll take a shot. Hey, Stanley, you sit there by the seat. But it's all right. Good to see you in the house. All right. So the first one goes like this. Well, I'm going away to leave you. Oh, shallow brown. Well, I'm going away to leave you. Oh, shallow brown. All right. Sound like a choir. Good. It's that simple. All right. The next one is you ain't nothing but a humbug. This is a sea shanty. You ain't nothing but a humbug. And your line is, so they say, so they say. Got it? You ain't nothing but a humbug.
So they say, so they say.
You ain't nothing but a humbug.
That's all I know.
One more. We ain't nothing but a humbug.
So they say, so they say.
You ain't nothing but a humbug.
That's all I know.
All right, everybody got it. Sound good. I hear some people trying to put a little harmony in there. That's all right. That's what we do. I hope you had some of that wine in there. All right, this other one is down by the river of Gambia. Down by the river of Gambia. Anybody know that one? No? Yeah, help me out here. All right. Down by the river of Gambia. Oh, Levi. Down by the river of Gambia, boys. Oh, Levi. I think that'll do. Very good. All right, so you're sounding pretty good at this point. Now, this last one, it's called drinking of the wine, but in a spiritual context. Y'all had some wine? Yeah, I hope so. You know, this is going to be a wonderful show if you did. All right, so it goes like this. If my mother asks for me, tell her death don't summon me. You ought to been there 10,000 years, drinking of the wine. Two white horses, side by side, can't none ride but the sanctified.
You ought to have been there 10,000 years, drinking of the wine.
Drinking
Of the wine, wine, wine. Drinking of the wine, that holy wine. You ought to have been there 10,000 years, drinking of the wine.
All right, give yourselves a hand, folks. Good, good. All right, sound like we're ready for our esteemed speaker. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us welcome Miss Thessalonia Williams.
Reverend Keckley, esteemed Reverend Reddy, esteemed Mrs. Keckley, honored members and guests, thank you all for inviting me to address the Free Colored Ladies Society of Helping Hands for our colored seamen on this anniversary and outreach occasion. I'm so happy to have you here. Please give yourselves a hand. Now, as Reverend Redding said, my name is Thessalonia Williams. I was born a slave, but I'm free now, as we all are. I come from a long line of seamen, from my daddy to my husband to my son, who is following along in his father's footsteps. And tonight, I want to share with you how they and us colored lady supporters fought for our freedom. And I thank you in advance for helping me tell my story by singing along with me. Well, I'm going away to leave you. Oh, shallow ground. Yes, I'm going away to leave you. Oh, shallow ground. Well, I'm signed on for a whaler. Oh, shallow ground. Yes, I'm signed on for a sailor. Oh, shallow ground. Well, I've got my clothes in order. Oh, shallow ground. 'Cause my packet leaves tomorrow. Oh, shallow ground. Sound mighty fine, mighty fine. I'm going to start my story with my husband, Levi. Leviticus Ezra Williams is his full name, and he was already a free man when I met him. It was on a Tuesday, November 14th, 1829. I wasn't free then, but I was tolerable at sewing, so I was hired out as a seamstress to Carlisle Tailor in Norfolk, Virginia. We made soldier and sailor uniforms there, and the ladies loved my fancy dress work as well. So there I was that morning sewing a beautiful moire silk dress, when I heard right outside the street this silly song my daddy used to sing to us when we was little.
You ain't nothing but a humbug.
So they say, so they say.
You ain't nothing but a humbug.
That's all I know.
Catfish grow on a huckleberry vine.
So they say, so they say.
Catfish grow on a huckleberry vine.
That's all I know. Then the man who had been singing it walked in the door, and my son walked with him. He had a glow, brown, shiny skin, shiny white teeth, and eyes too big for a man.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Then I missed the rest. I was so busy staring and feeling and myself, and realized I had been staring and my mouth was a little open and he was smiling at that. Well, good thing you couldn't see me blush because I got hot. He said his name was
Levi. What I'm trying to say is I think the lining of my coat might need fixing. This is Carlisle Tailor.
Nice, sturdy canvas, a good tar coating to keep the weather out, heavy flannel lining, and a thickness. Well, sir, I believe you might need to replace this lining.
And I thought to myself,
Is this him?
You see, my daddy Isaiah, who was a boatman himself, as I mentioned, had told me a while back.
Fess, now you be on the lookout for a man singing humbug, because he's going to be delivering a book.
Humbug? A book? What kind of book? What's in the book, Daddy? What's going on?
Yeah, never you mind all of that. You just be on the lookout and don't say nothing to nobody.
After which days and weeks went by and I forgot all about it. And now, was this him, the delivery man? He looked a little perplexed and doubtful because I was so flummoxed. And my master noticed it too from all the way across the room, because he got up and started to come over.
Sorry. What?
Never mind, it's not urgent. It would only last a little while longer, but ma'am, I am new to these parts. Do you know of a place I can stay?
Oh, yes, well, all the men stay at Mr. Buford's.
So naturally I sent him there. And I just happened to be staying right next door to Miss Viola's. So when he see me that next morning, we commenced to chatting and taking the measure of each other.
Morning, Miss Thessalonia.
Mr. Levi, Mr. Buford's all right?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the recommendation. Just fine.
So, you new around here?
Yes, I'm new to these parts, but I've been sailing since the War of 1812, where I got my freedom.
You free?
Yeah,
Yes, won my freedom fighting for the American side. British paid more money, but I didn't want to risk not being able to see my kinfolk.
Oh.
Your family here?
Yes, my mama, brothers and sisters is on one plantation and my daddy's on another. He's a boatman too, my daddy.
Is that right?
Uh-huh. He's hired out with his own crew and they deliver and pick up all over the Chesapeake Bay on his bugeye. Saving his money, so what he don't have to hand over to his master, but he not free yet.
Oh, I guess he don't get to keep much.
He did make a few trips further away, like New Orleans and even Haiti once. Where have you worked?
Oh, all over. North, South, Caribbean, Europe, with all kinds of crews, all colored, mixed, free and slave, whites and even foreigners.
So much changes.
Yeah, it was mostly good, man, and the best captain I had was a man named Denmark Vesey.
You knew Denmark Vesey. My daddy told me all about him.
Your daddy? What your daddy know about Denmark Vesey?
Told me he organized that rebellion over there in Charleston. Said he scared white folk so bad they started locking up colored boatmen as soon as they come to port.
Yes, they do that. And them quarantine laws charge you for every day you in jail and for your food. They hardly make no money at all. Thank goodness Virginia don't have them laws yet.
No, not yet.
What else about your daddy?
Well, he is dark and pure African. Even got the marks on his chest.
Huh. I worked with a man like that once. I wonder if it was him.
I don't know.
Short, burly man said he learned to sail on a slaver. It didn't smile much. Name of Alfred. A good reader?
Reading is illegal.
I guess it is. Sorry.
And that ain't my daddy. My daddy's name is Isaiah, and he's tall. And he smiled a lot. Sometimes. He knew all about the sea and was a canoeman over in Africa, even before he got kidnapped.
Definitely a different man. He say where he was from over there?
Every once in a while, he'll talk about his homeland, which is by the Gambia River. Down by the river of Gambia.
Oh, Khalifa.
Down by the river of Gambia, boys.
Oh, Khalifa.
Well, that is one of my favorite songs. And your daddy sounds like a man I would love to meet, but even though they don't have them quarantine laws here, I have to report back to my ship.
Thank you for walking me.
My pleasure.
Bye then.
Bye.
You'll notice that he didn't mention that book, and neither did I. But all day at work, I kept thinking about that book and about my daddy, who would smile, but he didn't jest. Like this time when I was young and our family was still all together on one plantation, there was this crazy overseer, reputation for killing, come drunk one night, demanded to talk to my mother. My father went to the door of the cabin, smiling.
I want to talk to Ruth. Well, sir, she's feeling mighty low. Sure she'll be better by morning call.
Next night, same thing. He smiled at white man on the way from the door.
I want to talk
To Ruth. Well, sir, she's still feeling mighty low. Sure she'll be better real soon.
Third night, overseer, Jenkins was his name, came drunk again and with his whip.
Isaiah, you know what I want, and I will have it.
Smile gone. My daddy looked that white man right in his eye and said,
No, sir, you won't. That Jenkins got so red, he was going into a fit right there. He raised that whip and he hit me. I forgot myself. I took that whip out of his hand and I hit him right back, knocked him right down. I felt the veins, blood running in my veins. Well, that white man Jenkins was shocked. Scared too of what he seen in my eyes. Got up, went back to his cabin. I was a little surprised too, truth be told. I spent a sleepless night going over it again and again. Thought sure there'd be trouble the next day. But that old Jenkins was laid up in the morning with vomiting and that other for the next 3 days. Heard he liked to die. Maybe somebody poisoned him a little. Anyway, he packed off soon enough. That's all I know.
I hurried on home that night, and there he was on the porch, that sailor Levi. I spoke dignified, sweet, gave him a smile, and went on in the house. Doesn't pay for a lady to appear too eager. But every time I happened to glance out the window, there he was, looking up. And that next morning, just so, he asked if he could walk me to work.
Where's home when you ain't sailing?
My family lives in a free black village in New York called the Hills. But when they got manumitted from the Quaker Williams, they settled there. I guess that's as much my home as anywhere.
A whole free village? What do they do in this free village?
Farming and carpentering. The Quaker gave them a little land, but it was pretty rocky. They make do, but they work his land also, which is, of course, much better.
Even up here in the north?
Yes, ma'am. Where my family really shines is in their carpentering. They built the church and most of the houses in the town. After the war, that's how I was able to get work in the ports building ships. Big ships, little boats, pedagowers,
yeah.
drawers. And then I started sailing again, this time peaceable like. Like I was saying, I've been all over. Charleston and Mobile and down to the Caribs and over to London. I wouldn't call none of them home though.
Your wife must miss you.
I have no wife. That ain't too busy. But a man do get lonely after a while.
Oh. My daddy once met some black pirates, had their own ship. He was good with boats. They asked him to join, and also because he could speak several languages. His own, of course, English, Spanish, and a little French. He told them, no thank you. He had a family.
Sure enough, pirates. They're some pretty dangerous men. When did they say to that?
Well, they wanted to force him, but they saw he was going to be too much trouble. They'd have to kill him, so they left him alone.
Yeah, he told them pirates, no thank you. He must be pretty tough, your daddy. You ever been on a whaler?
Don't tell me you've been on a whaling boat.
Once. Only once. He was gone for 2 years. It was hard work, and I like that if a man can do a good job, he did it and got respect for it. But I was way too long. I'm with your daddy there. Man couldn't have no proper family like that.
No, we couldn't.
Well, that evening I didn't rush him. Levi invited me to accompany him to Miss Johnny Mae's, where you could get the finest food you ever want. Ooh, the heads turned when we came in there. And I knew my daddy would hear about it probably before I got back home. But it was all perfectly respectable, so I didn't mind what they were saying. I believe we had a nice dinner, wasn't paying too much attention to the food. Afterwards, he invited me to go to a place where we could get something called ice cream. I had heard about this, but never tasted it. And maybe I didn't know exactly where he was going, and maybe it turned out to be a little far. But we was walking and talking about first one thing, then another.
And even though reading is illegal now, it's only here in the States, so it's easy to learn when you're away on the water. A colored sailor named Equiano wrote a biography. I read that. Another man named Brittany Hammond. I read his biography too.
Was they hard to get through?
At first, but I was determined. I'll tell you what was a little hard was the U.S. Constitution. And I followed that up with the Haitian Declaration of Independence.
I read that too. It was from when my daddy came back to Haiti and started calling himself Tusa. I asked him what Tusa stand for.
More than one-sa, less than three-sa. Go on, count for me.
And that's how I learned how to count. But I forgot to keep quiet about it. So, one day, in the packing shed, I announced, all proud, my daddy got 11 legs. Everybody stopped everything and started looking at me.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right. Boss man cried.
How do you know what is 11?
He picked up his whip. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. Daddy spoke up.
No, sir, my fault. I teached her. Just kidding. My fault. I teached her.
Got to make an example, I say. Somebody gotta take them licks, cause ain't none of you allowed to count.
I'll take them, sir. I'll take them, sir. See, she don't do that no more.
They licked me once anyhow. Licked him twice as hard teaching me.
Folks, they are dying.
Oh, Khalifa.
There's weeping and a sighing, boys.
Oh, Khalifa.
Later, when we was in the cabin and my mama was applying salve on his welts, I thought Daddy would be mad for sure and lick me again.
Ain't never gonna lick you for knowing. Just don't let on no more.
And then he started learning me to read. So, when he took that paper from the secret hiding place and read it to me from time to time, I ain't said nothing. I did look at it though. And it was from Toussaint Louverture, who led the people to freedom over there in Haiti. And that is why my daddy called himself Toussaint.
Come rock and roll me over.
Oh, Khalifa.
Come rock and roll me over.
Oh, Khalifa.
Down by the river of Gambia.
Oh, Khalifa.
Down by the river of Gambia, boys.
Oh, Khalifa.
Well, there we was in the middle of I didn't quite know where, eating ice cream which sure was tasty, singing in the street and holding hands. I was mortified. But before I could catch my breath good,
Thessalonia,
Yes.
you mentioned earlier that your daddy is loaned out to the farm where Rev Natacha is.
Well, no. I didn't, but yes, indeed, that Rev Turner sure can preach.
That's what I hear. And that book in the lining of my coat, it's a Rev Turner.
So that was it. Took you long enough?
You had to be sure, didn't it?
I suppose so.
I tried not to act too excited because my father and my brothers too didn't tell me nothing. And now here I was all up on the inside. Well, we more or less hurried back home and now my feet felt the difference. He handed me his coat before going in and ain't nobody paid no attention to that because everybody know that I was the best seamstress around and we all picked up little side jobs when we could. I went directly to my room and picked the stitches out of that lining ever so careful and extracted them, bundles of pages wrapped up in that oilcloth. And I picked, and I picked, and I read David Walker's appeal to the colored citizens of the world, but in particular and very expressly to those of the United States of America. Now that was a fancy title. And what that Mr. Walker had to say was something else again.
They want us for their slaves and think nothing of murdering us. It is no more harm for you to kill a man who is trying to kill you than it is for you to take a drink of water when thirsty.
Putting in mind of that verse in Exodus. And if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Well, that next morning when I gave Sailor Levi back his coat and them pages, why, he walked me all the way to the shop again, grinning and telling me his sailor stories.
One time down in Charleston, I hid a whole family. Father and mother, 3 children, one of them only a few months old. My little lifeboats. But it was so bad, 3 days of nothing but rain.
My.
But they kept that little one quiet, and I got them safely to Philadelphia without the captain noticing. It was a close call, though.
The Lord sent that rain just when you needed it.
A few days later, when my daddy came to port, I introduced them, and Levi delivered that book to him. Then,
Sir, I would be honored if you would allow me to have your daughter's hand in marriage.
just like that, my daddy didn't say nothing, just studied him a while. Then he looked at me, I was beaming. He gave Levi a short nod and a small smile.
Dandy Jim from South Carolina.
So they say, so they say.
He come home to marry Donna.
That's all I know.
So we got married on my master's plantation where my mama and family was. When my mama see Levi, she said, Thessalonia, you done got yourself a man. My brothers liked him too. Malachi, Samuel, Ezekiel, and my little brothers, Matthew and Luke. Took a little while for my sister Rebecca to warm up. She had heard bad things about Sarah, but she finally did. We moved into a little house of our own in town. Didn't cause too much fractious, him being free and me slave. We had other mixed neighbors like that. Levi wanted to buy me outright, but I told him go on ahead and buy his old auntie first from that terrible Turtley plantation. There was a little bit of time concern though, because we did get pregnant right away, and slavery do follow the mother. Meanwhile, every few weeks, a sailor, even sometimes a white one, would come by the tailor shop singing that song. You ain't nothing but a humbug.
So they say, so they say.
You ain't nothing but a humbug.
That's all I know.
And I would direct him to a boarding house where me or one of my ladies would quietly take his coat for repairing and extract them pages of David Walker's appeal from it. And them books were snatched up right up in the towns and port cities. And men like my daddy, they passed that book right along and them inland waterways up to the most outlying and isolated plantations. Why, in just 6 months, David Walker's appeal to the colored citizens was all up and down the East Coast. As my pregnancy started to grow, Levi started taking shorter trips 2 or 3 times a month, but still bringing in the appeal and other abolitionist writings as well. I love my husband, and he loved me too, I never doubted. One night though, when I was in my 5th or 6th month, and he was on shore leave, he didn't come home all night long. I did not take too kindly to his disappearing like that.
I'm so alone when you on the water, and now I gotta be alone when you home too?
I love you. I ain't doing nothing wrong, but I can't tell you.
Say you love me. Then you gotta tell me something.
I can't. I don't want you involved.
You don't want me involved. It's a little late for that. Levi, what are you doing?
Don't ask me. I just hate it. And that's the end of it.
We're getting ready to have a baby. This is just the beginning. And this baby, I want a free baby. Is what you involved in gonna make my baby free?
Don't ask me.
Well, is it?
Yes! I've been over to the plantation where your daddy is at, meeting with Nat Turner and some other men. He talking about God's children getting free, being free, overcoming the evil of slaving a man to death.
So that's why you've been looking so old and gray?
Yes, folks talking about running, but Rev Turner is talking something else entirely. He reads passages from David Walker's appeal, and then he busts out in song, and those tunes you done heard all your life take on a whole new meaning. If my mother asks for me, tell her death done summoned me. Y'all have been there 10,000 years.
Drinking of the wine.
He talked about Denmark, Vesey in South Carolina, Gabriel Prosser in Virginia, that host down there in Louisiana, and the smaller fights the white folks don't put in their papers.
Yes, you're right. And they talk freely around you like you don't have no ears or a brain to think about what you heard or a mouth to repeat it.
Rev Turner said he doesn't receive the sign. And
You know what? You're right. Don't tell me no more. If anybody asks me, I'll say, "Nah, missus, I expect you just visiting." Say he loved the feel of the land when you're there. I won't sleep much. I'm the nights. I'm gone.
Well, I'm going away to leave you.
Oh, shallow ground.
But I never will deceive you.
Oh, shallow ground.
They was preparing to fight. Hard to think about killing your neighbors. Folks you done growed up with, some of your kin. Got weird getting beat down though by them same neighbors and kin. Like that child Robbie over at Kurt Church's plantation. They sold his parents away and treated him worse than a dog. Kept him under the table and threw food down on the floor to him. And Uncle Daniel, who was so old, and long after he got sick, they called the veterinary doctor, who said he was fit enough to go back to work. They always said that. They worked people to death. They ruined the wives and daughters, sold away family members, and blamed us for it. And all that got even worse whenever the crops wasn't good. And you know what? Folks was getting fed up. Fed up with being slaves. When we visited the plantation or sometimes in town and I seen Levi and my daddy or brothers or other men together, they had their own nothing that was something going on. No signals or head turns or handshakes, none of that. But they had a bond you could see that if you was looking for it extra special. And even then, you was liable to miss or mistake it. Well, seemed like Nat Turner got cold feet for a while, but then he got that next sign. From who? God, of course. God protected the armies in his name and sent pillars and clouds, parted the sea, and guided his people to fight. Masters pointed to them verses about knowing your place, and after a while we figured we noted that it was on the side of freedom. Even our own, who betrayed us, did it for freedom. Just their own, of course. On August 21st, 1831, my daddy and brothers and my Levi went marching off with Reverend Turner. My sister Rebecca dressed up as a man, and she went on too.
Two white horses side by side, can't ride but the sanctified. You ought to been there 10,000 years, drinking of the wine.
For 2 days, they went from plantation to plantation, taking horses and guns, freeing and recruiting other slaves along the way. They killed about 60 white men, women, and children. In response, the white folks organized militias and called out regular troops.
My daddy, my brothers, they all got killed. Didn't have no word on Levi or my sister Rebecca. Nat Turner himself wasn't captured for 2 more months. In the meantime, though, white mobs attacked and killed more than 100 colors. Many who wasn't even involved, including my little brothers, Matthew and Luke, who were 9 and 11. All the businesses in town shut down, and me and my son Amos were called back to the plantation. We couldn't have no service, no church, no meeting of any kind. My mind ached. My heart, I kept hidden. One day, Massa called me over to the front yard fence, in front of a group of them white men with their dogs and their guns, and my 2-year-old Amos in the middle. That stench in the air, from heads on the fence poles, and my son, so small, but standing quiet and still, like his daddy and me teached him, water running down his leg.
I think you know something, Thessalonia.
No, sir. Nothing. Didn't know nothing.
Your daddy was right up in there with that murdering Nat Turner.
Ain't seen my daddy since didn't know when, and he wasn't much for talking no way. All the years he served you, you know he wasn't one for talking.
Where that free husband of yours?
That fool Levi. All that talk about another wife up north, I told him I don't never want to see him no more. He be gone for 3 months now, massa. You know that, massa. I don't know nothing.
How about your boy here? What he know? Can you read, boy?
No, massa, he can't even talk good. Just a dumb baby nigga child.
Just in case he knows something.
A knife cut off the little finger of his left hand. They threw it in the dirt. Mama fixed up Amos's hand. And after a while, he stopped screaming. I went back then, and I picked up his little finger, buried it by the creek, recited my daddy's and my favorite passage from David Walker's Appeal. It is no more harm for you to kill a man who is trying to kill you than it is for you to take a drink of water when thirsty. And I pledge to teach it to my son. Then I sang to the birds in the sky in the memory of Rev Turner and my daddy, my brothers, my sister, my Levi, and all the rest. And that was their homegoing service.
If you get there before I do, tell my mother I'm coming too. You ought to be there 10,000 years, drinking of the wine. If my mother asks for me, tell her death done summon me. You ought to be there 10,000 years, drinking of the wine, drinking of the wine. Calmed down after a while, after most all the women, all the men and boys was murdered, all just gone. My mama and us women folk, well, we held on. And I went back to work in a tailor shop. Everything was harder. More laws, more restrictions against reading, ciphering, and meeting. But the sailors kept coming. And me and the other ladies, we continued to help them out. Levi finally sent a letter with one of them and told us Rebecca had kept going all the way to Canada and she was doing all right. And that he was in Philadelphia and was coming for us soon. Praise God. And he did too, about a year later. But in the meantime, we got new boatmen and we developed new routes to share the information them sailors brought, and we all help folks to escape. Because you can't kill freedom. Well, my master's going to sell me.
Oh, shallow brown.
Says to sell me to a Yankee.
Oh, shallow brown. Says he'll sell me for $1.
Oh, shallow brown.
A big fat Spanish dollar.
Oh, shallow brown.
Think I'll climb that chilly mountain.
Oh, shallow brown.
Try to find that silver fountain.
Oh, shallow brown.
Well, we should introduce people.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Keith Johnston, he's director. Marie Donnie Davis. I want to thank the crew at work. There's Jay Katharine, Saxby, Dawn. How can I forget your last name?
Rio.
Dawn Rio. And then there's Katharine, who's the director of the. This is Langston Hughes typewriter. And my name is Vienna Carroll. So what I want to say is that mostly what we provided you with was the history, the hidden history of these black sailors and how they were actually blue in our freedom story. And when you hear their story, you know, it makes sense. You know, like they were essential to our freedom networks, which we don't hear about, and to our own efforts and success at freeing ourselves, most of which we don't hear about because it's given away to the Quakers. The Quakers like to get out of jail free card. And so, you know, I really wanted to share this with people and to have you help me sing these songs because they really are call and response songs, and they're songs that belong to everyone. So I really thank you very much for singing the songs with me. Y'all did a fabulous job. So if anybody has any questions or anything. Yes.
I heard your interview on WBAI, and you gave a lot of history. Maybe you could share a little bit more about the seafaring people and how they affected the overall.
Okay. Well, so you know, at one point, goods and services moved on the water. We didn't have the trains yet or all of that. And so what happened? Well, you know, free labor is always good labor. So about 20%, a little more than 20% of people who moved goods and services on the water in the 20s, in the 1820s, were black men. They were free men, and they were also enslaved men. And they traveled, as Warner was saying to the lady, they traveled in mixed crews, they traveled in little boats. There were 2 of them or 3 of them, and they would be hired out because slavery is so much more complex. Now, you know, because what we have is a postage stamp and we have a few images, but we don't have the complexity of the relationship. So there were people that were hired out. So these men, they would have little boats and they would take it from the isolated plantation to the port, and then it would be in a bigger ship from the port, and it would go up and down the coast, and these men traveled the world, and they came back with stories, and they came back, and they were treated like men, and they came back and they talked to people on land who they were intermarried with or who they intermingled with about that. And they were really essential in developing the freedom ethos of the African population on this shore. And they traveled all over the world, free and enslaved. And so they were so effective. Like Denmark Vesey, I just read about Denmark Vesey. And so he was the leader of the insurrection in 1822 or 3 in South Carolina, and it was all up in the church, the AME church, because they were so upset about how they were being treated, and they separated from the church, and they were having meetings, and he's like, something got to be done, and maybe he was going to emigrate to Africa, and he was like, no, he was going to stay and see what he could do. He was a former sailor. And they were organized. and they were organizing, It was a very Christian, a very religious, thing. And it was a Christian person who betrayed them, who got freedom, his own. And as a result of that, the laws became more and more draconian. People can't read, they can't write, they can't meet. We see it in ourselves and others, even today. Those vestiges of slavery and those laws that kept us separated and apart. So they had these quarantine laws they called Negro Seamen's Acts. And every time something happened, they had more draconian laws, and they did what they do today, which is they completely ignore what's happening in the black and brown community. The difference is today that we have our own independent ways of communicating, and that is what is it called? Twitter. Instagram, social media, which makes me crazy as an older person, but it's so wonderful because people can represent themselves and you can find out what's really going on with people. You don't have to go through one lens to find out what's going on with people. They tried their best to suppress information. However, of course, even though they were doing that, they would talk around their help as though the help didn't have no ears. There was a woman named Mary Bowser, and she was a black woman. She was a very famous black woman spy, and she was in Jefferson Davis's house. And she was literate. She had gone to school. She had been over in Europe and this and that. But she presented herself kind of in the same way that Harriet Tubman presented herself, as just a dominator. And they're so willing to buy that, and she was able to pass along lots and lots of information for a long time.
Wow.
This is a big undertaking. How long did it take you to put this together, and what inspired you to do this?
Well, my mission in life is to share African American history through art, because so much of it is hidden. And we have such a narrow view of who we are, and other people have such a narrow view of who we are. And I can't help but think that if we had a more rounded view of who we all are in this thing called America, that it would help us go a long way. Everybody's yearning to be peaceful and free and with each other, and we have so many ways to keep ourselves apart. So anyway, I'm kind of a geekazoid a little bit about African American history, and then I decided, well, maybe I wanted to share it through art. I didn't want to write a book, because I like to sing and I like people to sing with me. So this is really wonderful, and so that's what started me. I was actually writing a story about the Nat Turner Rebellion from the perspective of a daughter of one of his lieutenants, trying to see it from that way, and remembering that he was a reverend, because he's painted in a particular way for us, and we see him in that way, and so forth and so on, and blah blah blah. So I wanted to explore that, and in somewhere in there I found out about black sailors, but I didn't know anything about them. And I went to the Sea Music Festival in Mystic, Connecticut. They have them every year. They have them around the country, different ones. But they have this one in Mystic, Connecticut. This is the 40th year this year. And people get together and they sing from Thursday to Sunday. These sea shanties, which are mostly black work songs. And they share some of their history and so forth. And I found this book by a man named Jeffrey Bolster about black sailors. And also, when Keith and I were doing residency up in Hudson, found out about this free black community called the Hills, that was there. It's extinct now, and they had like 70% of their men sign up for the U.S. colored troops. There's a whole nother story. When Lincoln finally invited the men to serve, the men that were too old, and they signed up. And they were sailors and they were soldiers. And the woman who wrote that book, her name is Edith Ann Quinn. She wrote painstaking about the individual men who were sailors and soldiers and signed up, and she followed their stories and so on. And so, that's how it is. And I love, as you know, Stanley, early black music. I love that. And so to find ways to include it in the stories about us and to to shift how we're viewed, I think is really, because we live in the United States. We live with guilt and shame. Black and white and brown, it's all guilt and shame, and we never can speak about it correctly, and it's just ridiculous. But I personally think that if the totality of the history was known and shared, that would go way far in helping us.
Expand this into a longer story, because I want to know more about the characters.
Yes, absolutely, I do, and I want to thank the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone. They give me a grant, and the Garner Glaser Foundation, they give me a grant, and all of you who are helping me, and all of the people. I just want to thank you all. So yeah, big plans.
Pleasure of seeing her play 2 years ago, but I can't remember the name of it.
Shallow Brown? Singing with a sword in my hand.
Yes.
Yes.
Holy Breaker.
Oh, so she's talking about the first play, that I did called Singing with a Sword in My Hand. It's about a family escaping slavery, and for many years, I went to Yale University and I majored in African American Studies.
Amen.
But I still didn't know. And then the Johnston brothers, lift every voice and sing. And so there were two brothers, and they put together a book of spirituals in 1924. So I had that from one of my classes, and I met this song in there called Singing with a Sword in My Hand. I'm like, when did they sing that song? and it never, excuse me, I'm just really hot. It never came to me until, like, I was, at home a few years ago, not that many. I was at home recuperating from surgery, and I went to because I'm from York, Pennsylvania, which is 12 miles above the Mason-Dixon line. And I went to the York Historical Society, which was only 6 miles from my home, but because I lived in the white suburbs, we never visited there. And I went there, and there was all of this history about black people in the Underground Railroad, which started me like, and all of a sudden, it kind of like broke open for me, like, and then once you start doing some research, you find more and more things, and so that was the beginning of my research about black people in the Underground Railroad, and I've come to shift my entire view of what that is. So the so-called slave grapevine, which is minimized and trivialized, and was the Underground Railroad, and the Quakers helped, and they wrote down their history, which is why we have that. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to show, because again, because the view we have of slavery is so one-dimensional. And so people who loved each other, who planned together to escape, because there are people who left their people, but people who planned together to escape and how they might have done it, and especially how those songs could have been used as codes to help people escape. Because people always talk about that, but what did it sound like on the ground? You know, like if you were in the field, you heard somebody singing a song, how would you respond? And so, you know, like I kind of made it up, but you know, it was what was wonderful. More slave narratives are coming to light, and I read about one recently. And this young man, he tried to escape 5 times.
And you did? He did.
4 times he was helped and aided and abetted by black people, because we always talk about we're not together and we don't help each other, and that's a bunch of bullshit. And 4 times he was also betrayed by 2 black people as well. But in 4 of his attempt escapes, he was helped by black people, and the 5th time he was successful at being able to escape. So I don't know, why am I telling you that? So I really wanted to talk about families escaping and people being together and really making it happen for themselves and their families, and how we did it for ourselves, and there wasn't always a Quaker in the story. Not every Quaker. There wasn't a Quaker in every story, and so I really wanted to focus on that. So my next story, you know, might be a Denmark Vesey story. So, but anyway, I'm going to work on this one, you know, and have some sad lights, dance, you know, everything.
I just want to applaud you for your storytelling ability. I think this is a topic that, as Black Americans, is very hard to share sometimes, because often, we're dehumanized as a people, and our experience has been dehumanized. So these personal stories that you have developed, and I just think it's a brilliant way of sharing something that's very difficult for America to embrace, and not having a white protagonist as the feature of this story is very important, and I just applaud you for that.
Thank you so much.
I just want to echo that, because it's very hard to tell this story. It's very hard on both sides to hear it and to tell it. As a black person, we relive it. We can't even dream what our ancestors went through. But they did, you guys did such a great job of acting. And I applaud that too. It was really great.
Yeah. I'd like to add to both of the last people. I too studied American studies with an emphasis on the African diaspora. And in that experience, it was amazing to learn what I hadn't learned prior to that. But since then, I've learned so much more that I hadn't learned. And to have you tell these kind of stories, because I had no idea. And even I was watching the PBS special on the Reconstruction, and to find out that how all the money that all the black people put into the Freedmen's Bank, that they was gone. And just so many things like this, that it's not, all of these things aren't written it's so difficult to do the research to find out this information that in so many cases is going to upset you, but to know it, just to know it, the pride that you have in our ancestors,
that through the worst of times, we still tried to make it. We still had purpose and drive. We weren't, shiftless and lazy and all that other stuff, So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was trying to be quiet.
No, don't be quiet.
The only thing I want to just say is that, there actually is a lot of information that is out there.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is that, look, I went through grade school and I thought that I couldn't stand history because it was taught so badly on the grade school level.
Exactly.
And when I got to my first graduate program, I realized this history stuff was pretty interesting. Enough that I went on to do a doctorate in history. But to say, especially for that Reconstruction period, there is just a lot of stuff that's out there. I got 2 shelves at home, nothing but slave narratives. If it's not taught in school, you have to pick it up on your own, unless, I followed you in Afro Studies, and that's how I got my first, my first exposure to it. So it does take some work, but a lot of the information really is out there, and it's not all by black scholars, although Skip would have done better using some black scholars for some of his work. No, because there's some good black scholars who got good stuff, but even Eric Foner, Leon Midwack, and of course John Hope Franklin, John Blassingame wrote in that area. There's a. Anyway, I just want to encourage people, or maybe what we need to do is suggest that you put a little reading list at the back of your little program. But there's, I just want to encourage everybody else that there is stuff out there, and if you want a reading list from me, I'm glad to give it to you. But we should talk about those things and make them more accessible to amongst
when I was
ourselves.
in college, there was a woman, she came through, I don't know if you remember her, and she said she didn't believe in African American history because it should all be American history, and I was appalled by her. But I can understand what she means now, because it should all be included, and it shouldn't be called inclusionary or political correctness or anything. We should just have a whole and full view of who we all are and our participation. But there it is.
There's the problem.
Yeah. In the meantime.
Well, the American history is a lie without the African American.
That's right. That's right.
Anyone who reads the Constitution without understanding that the entire thing is structured around protecting slavery in the South, it just doesn't understand what the Constitution is. But no one taught me that when I was reading the Constitution.
No,
in
not
high
at
school.
all.
You have a great reading list on Singing with the Sword.
There's a reading list on the Singing with the Sword website. I'm going to put it on the Shallow Brown website. I'm going to also put it on the Vienna Carroll website. Dawn Real is the web lady. Dawn Real. Just keeping
My
me
most
afloat
exciting project.
on the internet. Yeah.
Also, Phillipsburg Manor in Terrytown, historic site. They're launching a website next month called People Not Property. I'm part of that project, and it's an awesome website, interactive, some stories. Just to say, if it's not in the curriculum, it's hard for people to get it. The problem is it's not in our curriculum. It's out there. A lot of information out there. I learned most of my black history in the theater. Every play you learn, you got to do research and learn. Working with piano, I learned so much. I didn't know about David Walker's Appeal until she brought it. And it's out there, but it's not in our curriculum. It's not in Hollywood. It's not where it needs to be to get to everyone. So it'd be great if everyone did their research, but are we going to do that?
On a more basic level, the other takeaway from this presentation was the importance of education.
Absolutely.
Not even like advanced education, just reading and writing in our community and in America in general. And we see we're witnessing what happens when people aren't educated in our society in general right now. So it's really important for our people, but I think for everybody.
Keith, you want to talk about the Peaster?
I'd like to piggyback on some of that, if you don't mind. I homeschool my son since his 6th grade, and we founded a website, an educational website called Kamali Academy. Incredible resource. Incredible resource. Kamali, Kamali, Kamali Academy. And we got textbooks, they have mental math books. The history book is phenomenal. Because I'm actually using 2 history books. I'm using the Kamali's history books and also the regular history book, and we compare. But what it does is gives him an overview of like, wow, this was happening, but in here they didn't talk about our plight trying to be free as well, like the colonists. You know, when they talk about Jamestown and all that, and what the Americans, they were fighting to be free from the British. And one of the writing assignments was, whose side would you be on? But after you read the other one, he says, wow, well, wait a minute, we were fighting for the same thing from them, and they didn't even mention us. So, Kamali Academy, it's a good resource for information. Those of you who are still raising kids, you don't have to homeschool them, but you know they have a lot of resources at the academy.
One of my former professors of philosophy was crazy enough. That sounds. He had a quote that said, you know, how do you reach a generation that thinks with its feelings and hears with its eyes? You reach them via the arts. And whereas books and reading and teaching from elders is primary, at least I believe so, primary, a great supplement to that, which is why I thought Vienna is through the arts, to reach specifically this generation, a generation that, you know, has either by lack of access or honestly apathy have not availed themselves to reading. Arts is a very good way of, and much like Keith, a lot of my history I've learned via the arts in many of its forms. So thank you again.
David Walker's appeal is still in print, by the way.
Yes, it is.
We can order it from wherever we get your
And it's a small little book.
My students complain anyway, but
It's fiery, yeah.
Also, you mentioned Pinkster, oldest African American holiday in America. Right? It's a celebration on the 18th, Saturday the 18th at Phillipsburg Manor. Very important holiday. Anybody heard of Pinkster before?
yeah, Dutch derivation.
Yeah, everybody celebrates Juneteenth, but Pinkster is right here in New York, slavery in New York. And so we'll be sharing rituals and traditions from the folks who were enslaved. And we always use enslaved Africans as opposed to slaves. Our language, the word minority, language. As we continue with the language that continues to make people small, or turn them into cattle, that's part of the problem. And so, by the way, everyone here, educators, these are teaching artists. The teaching artists either teaches through their art form or teaches their art form. So everyone here are teaching artists that actually use the arts to address social issues or teach history, whatever it is.
I think that deserves Thank you. I'm going to try to say something, but I don't know that I have the right words. I think this is the African American history row, right? I also majored in African American history, and there's something that I live every day that I can't put into words. And I think it is really the yearning for the missing stories and the elements of this history, and a yearning for the unity that eludes this nation much of the time. And there's a word that hasn't come up tonight, but I was looking for it and it came: aesthetic, the African aesthetic. And the way that you began tonight with the song and the oral, right, the listening, and the fact that oral history really is a tenet, right, of African art. The aesthetic came through the lives and the spirits, right? And we have that. And you set the tone with that. And I felt some unity that I will take into my weekend and into my week. And that's art.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also want to apologize. Thank you. I think I messed up that monologue at the beginning. Mr. Reddy. No, because I was shuffling paper. I didn't have the page.
Oh, it's all
So I didn't have the page. So
Ain't nobody know that until you confess it.
It was so
that the aesthetic is about participation.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
And we live in the West, it's about spectators. We watch.
Yeah.
We don't participate. In the African tradition, there are no spectators. Everyone's a participator. The man says, boom, you gotta get in there and dance. Right? That's not what everybody sings. I don't know if you've been to the continent. Everywhere I've been in the continent, everyone just participates. So that's part of the aesthetic. That's what we brought here. And so it's an extremely important part. I just don't know if I said there were 25% Africans in. Did I mention that in Baltimore? All right, I was making it up.
22. You were close, you said 22. You said 22.
25% of the population in Baltimore, 17,000 free, 10,000 enslaved. Did I mention that?
Maybe.
I don't know, the page wasn't there. But I just want to honor Vienna's historical genius and her tenacity to continue to bring these stories alive. Thank you so much, Vienna.
Amen.
Is there more to drink? Did y'all have enough to drink?
No.
Is there more to drink, Alice?
What you doing next, Vienna?
I'm gonna, keep developing it, and next time you